You condo people think you own this place. I own the paper. You get nothing. Richard Sterling drops his phone mid-call, cutting off a State Department of Agriculture agent who had been asking about water account numbers. 6 years managing Laurel Heights, 112 units. Not a single document, not a single email, not a single expenditure moves without his sign-off. Across from him stands Maya Lynn, 34, single mother. An $18,400 emergency room bill crumpled in her hand. Her 4-year-old son had just survived his first seizure 4 days ago. She had emailed Richard asking for 10 water account digits, politely, formally, with the Department of Agriculture paperwork attached, to complete her cottage food permit application. She's trying to hold her life together. On the kitchen shelf of her apartment, a carved wooden mold sits quiet. Her grandmother brought it from Guangdong in 1982. Dark circles press deep under her eyes. Maya holds the $1,500 illegal commercial activity notice he just dropped on the table. Her fingers tighten around the edge of the paper until the tips go white. Her oven has never been turned on, not once. $18,400 in medical debt. $1,500 in fines for cakes that were never baked. Nearly $20,000 dropped on a mother standing at the edge, only because she dared to ask for 10 digits. Because when Richard hung up on a state agent to bury a water bill, he wasn't protecting community privacy. He was protecting a 6-figure crime. And the woman he just backed into a corner, within 6 weeks, will walk into the building's annual meeting, lay 6 pages of city records on that table, and end his career. Richard presses the pen clipped to his breast pocket once against the edge of the fine notice. A single tap, then turns and walks out. I read this story for the first time at 1 in the morning, and I wasn't angry. I just sat there, for a long time. $18,400 in life or death debt hanging over a mother's head. And the man who controls her building piles on another $1,500 fine for cakes she never sold. 52,000 upvotes. Someone wrote, he wanted to take away the last bit of dignity she had. Someone else, I read this and immediately called my HOA board asking to see the books. She didn't lose. But here's the part I couldn't figure out. Maya is a logistics coordinator. She doesn't know the law. So how did she walk into that annual meeting holding a line-by-line comparison of the city's water billing records, the exact data Richard hung up on a state agent to hide? If you've ever had someone in power stomp on your last hope, tell me. I want to hear it. The story starts with a carved wooden mold on a kitchen shelf, the same mold that, a few weeks from now, Maya will lift down to press dough, just hours after 2 officers walk Richard Sterling out of the meeting room. Maya Lynn, 34, single mother, logistics coordinator, the kind of person who processes 20 shipping containers a day, each one requiring 15 different documents just to clear customs without being held. She moved to Laurel Heights 3 years ago, a 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor, enough light for the bonsai guava tree she grows on the balcony, enough room for Leo, only 1 year old at the time, to roll across the floor without hitting a corner. She signed the lease in the morning. That same afternoon, she brought Amma's wooden mold inside and set it on the kitchen shelf, the first thing she unpacked. The mold Amma carried from Guangdong in 1982, cut from aged plum wood. The interior carved with tiny 4-petal chrysanthemums, hand-chiseled, not machined. The bottom edge worn slightly crooked because Amma was left-handed. Every time Maya presses her fingers against that worn edge, it feels like Amma is still holding the other side. Amma baked pineapple cakes through 4 economic crises, baked to sell when tuition money ran out, baked to give away when she had no neighbors to count on, baked to hold on to her dignity when she had nothing else. The wooden mold was never just an heirloom, it was a manual. The night Leo was rushed to the ER, 11 p.m. on a Wednesday, Maya was working late on customs documentation. Her phone rang. The babysitter's voice was shaking. She drove to the hospital in her work clothes and forgot to turn off the stove. No one was with her in the waiting room, no one to text. Leo's seizure, his first, no family history. The doctor ran through a list of terms Maya heard the way you hear a plane passing overhead. She nodded, signed, nodded, signed. She didn't cry until she got back to her car at 4 in the morning and realized she didn't know where to go first, home or back to the babysitter so she could stretch out one more workday. The bill arrived 14 days later. $18,400. That same week, Maya opened the State Department of Agriculture website and read the requirements for a cottage food license, the law that lets you make and sell food from home without renting commercial kitchen space. Pineapple cakes from Ama's mold. She knew the recipe, she knew how to price them, and she had enough coconut oil stocked to run a test batch tonight. One requirement: 10 water account numbers from the building's water system to verify the source wasn't an unregulated private well. Standard paperwork, exactly the kind of thing Maya handled every day. Copy-paste 10 digits, stamp, submit. She emailed Richard Sterling, professional, polite, attached the Department of Agriculture form with each step explained. Richard didn't reply. She sent a follow-up 3 days later. Still nothing. Day 8, she called the property management office. The receptionist said Richard was unavailable. She left a message. Day 12, Richard called back. 2 minutes. Water account data is proprietary vendor information. The property is not authorized to share it. Mr. Sterling, this is a standard request from the State Department of Agriculture. You've heard what I said. The line went dead. Richard Sterling, 51, property manager of Laurel Heights for 6 continuous years. The kind of man who stands at resident meetings with a color-tabbed orange binder under his arm, organized by address, by date, by violation type, and explains that your property is the community's property, in the same voice someone reads the rules of a sport no one chose to play. 6 years, 112 households. Not a dollar moves without his approval. Not an email goes unsaved. He knows the grass height in front of every unit, not because he cares, but because he measured it. Evelyn Vance, the board president, lets him run everything. She shows up, nods, signs, and never pays HOA fees because board members are exempt under the bylaws. She is the stamp. Richard is the office. Maya decided to go in person. His office is on the ground floor, next to the community bulletin board and a vending machine that's been broken for 3 months. She arrived during business hours with a printed copy of the Department of Agriculture form and a handwritten explanation, the kind she writes when she needs customs to understand a complicated shipment fast. Richard did not invite her to sit. I already told you, vendor data. Mr. Sterling, a Department of Agriculture agent, has confirmed this is standard procedure. They can call you directly if... Good, have them call. She called the agriculture office. Patricia, the agent handling Maya's file, called Richard that same afternoon. 17 seconds. That's how long the call lasted before Richard hung up. Not because he was busy, not because of an emergency, because a property manager just hung up on a state government official. And that, to anyone paying attention, is what someone does when they're hiding something. To Maya, it was just another door slamming shut. She went home. Leo was asleep. The wooden mold sat on the shelf. The oven still hadn't been turned on. The next morning, a red envelope appeared on her door. Notice of violation number 1, unauthorized commercial activity within a residential unit. Fine, $1,500. Due within 14 days. Maya read it again. She looked at the kitchen, oven off, flour bag still sealed, wooden mold sitting exactly where she'd left it on the shelf. He fined her $1,500 for a business that had never existed. Her fingers pressed into the edge of the envelope until the paper cut into her skin. She set the envelope on the table, walked to the kitchen, looked up at the shelf. She lifted the mold down, set it in a cardboard box, taped it shut. She didn't cry right then. She sat down on the kitchen floor, back against the refrigerator, and stared at the cardboard box until the noise in her head went quiet enough to count. $18,400 in medical bills, plus $1,500 in fines, plus no additional income next month, plus Leo still on medication that needed monitoring, plus herself sitting on a kitchen floor at 11 at night. Nearly $20,000. Over 10 digits he wouldn't hand over. If you've never been cornered by someone holding just enough power to make your life impossible, you're lucky. And if you have, then you know exactly what happens next inside Maya's head. Not rage, calculation. She stayed on that floor for a long time. Then she stood up. Not because she felt better, but because she saw the stack of logistics files on her desk. shipping manifests waiting to be processed, and a very familiar thought surfaced from the part of her brain she uses to unstick cargo held at customs. When this gate won't open, go straight to the port. Richard's vendor data? Fine. He won't hand it over? No problem. But the water bills for the entire complex, that data doesn't belong to Richard. It belongs to the City Water Authority. And the City Water Authority, under the state's Open Records Act, is legally required to respond to a formal written request. Mandatory. Within 3 business days. Maya opened her laptop. Searched. Georgia Open Records Act. 30 minutes later, she had the request form, the submission address, and the response deadline. She filed the request with the City Water Authority on Monday morning. Scope: all water billing records for Laurel Heights, the past 3 years. Then she waited. 15 days later, the file arrived in her inbox. 36 months of water invoices, 214 pages. She opened 2 windows side by side. Left, the City Water Authority invoices, what Laurel Heights actually paid under its bulk commercial customer contract. Right, the utility expense line items Richard sent residents each month in their HOA fee statements. She started typing numbers into a spreadsheet. Column A, what the city billed the complex. Column B, what Richard charged residents. Column C, the difference. Month 1, column C, $3,200. Month 2, $3,200. Month 12, $3,200. Month 36, $3,200. Column D, final row, $115,200. She stared at the number and didn't take it in. She recalculated, used a handheld calculator, ran the Excel formula, did it a 4th time. $115,200. 3 years. Richard billed each unit at individual retail rates. He paid the city at bulk wholesale. The $3,200 monthly gap, every dollar of it, appeared in none of the financial reports she had ever received from the board. Not in the annual meeting minutes. Not in the budget reconciliations Evelyn Vance signed every year and sent to residents under the heading Transparent Financial Operations. The screen glowing white in a dark room. Leo asleep in the next room. She sat looking at the spreadsheet she had just built. The same spreadsheet Richard had hung up on a state agent to keep anyone from seeing. What has he been protecting? Now she knew. Here's the thing: the property manager of Laurel Heights, the man who fined Maya $1,500 for cakes she never baked, didn't account for. The woman he'd been cornering every day works a job that is entirely about reading numbers and cross-referencing invoices. He thought he was shutting down a mother who needed money. He was actually giving her practice. Maya knocked on David Park's door on Saturday afternoon. 5th floor, corner unit overlooking the courtyard. Retired accountant, the kind of man who comes to resident meetings with a pre-sharpened pencil and never once raises his hand. She handed him the printout. 7 pages, 2 columns of numbers. Column C highlighted in yellow. David put on his glasses, read each line, turned the page, read again. His finger tracked every row with the tip of his pencil, the way someone checks a document who doesn't intend to miss anything. Then he looked up. We've been paying retail. He's been paying the city wholesale. $3,200 difference a month. For 3 years. His hand rested on the table, not trembling, just heavy. He's been stealing from us. The two of them sat in David's kitchen as the afternoon light faded through the window, 7 pages of paper in front of them, containing a truth that 112 families had been paying for over 3 years without knowing it. 2 days later, they printed 100 copies. The Laurel Heights annual meeting, next Wednesday. The meeting Richard always runs with that color-coded orange binder tucked under his arm, and Evelyn Vance nodding beside him. Maya would be there. She'd bring 6 pages, a condensed version, reformatted for easy reading. David would bring the rest. Wednesday. Richard Sterling had no idea what was coming. Laurel Heights Community Room, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Plastic chairs in rows, fluorescent lights buzzing, watery coffee in a pot on the welcome table, the kind of table that tells you the board has prepared to seem like they're listening. Richard sits at the head of the table, orange binder open, navy pinstripe jacket. the one he wears whenever something needs to be entered into the record with the appropriate air of professionalism. To his right, Evelyn Vance, pencil already in hand, face arranged in its familiar posture of agreement. He opens with the financials, even-keeled, confident. Maintenance budget down 12%, hallway lighting upgrade on schedule, cleaning contract renegotiated at a better rate. Then he reaches item 4. Item 4, delinquent fine collection policy. Effective immediately, any resident with outstanding fines unpaid past 30 days will have common area access suspended, including laundry facilities, covered parking, and this meeting room. Motion to approve. Evelyn nods, writes it down. No one asks who item 4 is aimed at. No one needs to. The side door opens. Maya Lynn walks in. Behind her, David Park, document bag in hand, glasses on. She sets a stack of papers on an empty table near the back. No rush. Doesn't look at Richard. Sorry for coming in late. He looks at her. His eyes move to the papers in her hand. 7 pages. City Water Authority logo in the upper corner. The meeting is in session, Ms. Lynn. I know. I'll be brief. She walks to the front of the table, places both hands on the wood surface. A small sound, but the whole room hears it. Silence. 36 months. The City Water Authority bills this complex under a bulk commercial customer contract, wholesale pricing for the whole building. Mr. Sterling has been billing each of us at individual retail rates. The monthly gap, $3,200, times 36 months. She looks directly at him. $115,200. Not one line of it appears in any financial report this board has ever issued. David stands, begins walking the document down the rows. 1 copy per person, 7 pages, 2 columns, column C in yellow. Richard leans forward. This is inaccurate information. Accounting procedures require Mr. Sterling. She says it quietly, doesn't add anything else. The whole room hears. You told me. You condo people think you own this place. I own the paper. He doesn't answer. You were right. You owned your paper, but you forgot something. The city keeps the master records. And right now, the city owns you. No one applauds. No one shouts. The room just sits still. The silence of 42 people who've just finished reading the last page, each of them doing the math on what $3,200 divided by 112 units over 3 years means for every fee they've ever paid. The first person to stand is Sarah Nguyen from the 7th floor. Single mother, 2 kids, hit with a $400 fine last year for parking 12 inches over a line for 20 minutes. I paid every fine on time. I don't owe you anything, but you owe me. A second person stands. A third. No speeches, just people getting to their feet. Evelyn Vance looks at the 7 pages in front of her, looks at Richard. She sets her pencil down. For the first time in 6 years, she sets her pencil down before a meeting is over. Richard gathers his papers, stands, chin still up. I'll be retaining legal counsel to address the inaccuracies in this document. The main door opens. 2 people step in, dark suits, ID badges. One of them says, in the calm voice of someone arriving exactly on time, Mr. Sterling, we're from the district attorney's office. We need you to step outside. Someone had called them an hour before the meeting started. Not Maya, not David. Richard walks out, the orange binder still tucked under his arm, organized by address, by date, by violation level. 6 years of work by a man who believed that power belonged to whoever held the most paper. The door closes behind him. 4 weeks later, Richard Sterling faces felony fraud charges, $115,200 to be repaid in full. His property management license revoked permanently. Evelyn Vance submitted her resignation by email the same night at 11 p.m. No reason given, none needed. A new board was elected 10 days later. David Park as treasurer. First policy he proposed: all monthly utility invoices to be cross-referenced publicly against the original vendor billing, posted on the community board, countersigned by 2 independent board members. Violation notice number 1, issued to Maya Lynn, $1,500, unauthorized commercial activity, voided officially. She'd never paid a cent of it, just a red piece of paper, torn up. 6 weeks after the meeting. Maya's kitchen, Saturday morning, sunlight through the small window above the counter, light she hadn't had the presence of mind to notice in months. She opens the cabinet above the stove, lifts down the cardboard box. The tape is still on it. She peels back the tape, opens the box, lifts out the wooden mold. The bottom edge still worn crooked to the left. The smell of aged plum wood and old butter, the smell she remembers from childhood, sitting on a step stool watching Ma work. She runs her thumb along the worn edge, heavy in the familiar way. Leo comes downstairs, sees the mold on the counter, sees the flour, the eggs, the coconut oil. "Are we making cookies today, Mom?" "Today we make cookies." 2 weeks after that, Maya carries a small box tied with red string to the State Department of Agriculture office. Inside, 6 pineapple cakes, pressed from Ma's wooden mold. Patricia takes the box, opens it, picks one up, takes a bite, looks at Maya. Worth the wait. Absolutely worth the wait. Maya Lynn's cottage food license was approved that afternoon. If this story landed with you, 3 things. Subscribe. Next week, an HOA treasurer in Texas embezzled $340,000 through a fake landscaping company. The person who caught it wasn't an auditor, wasn't law enforcement. It was a neighbor who found a shredded invoice in the recycling bin. You'll want to see how it ends. Leave a comment. Tell me the most unfair thing someone with a little bit of power has ever done to you. I read every one. And share this video, because Maya didn't know the law. She just knew how to read numbers and ask the right question. Sometimes, that's all it takes.